Welcome to episode 1521. I have finally assimilated my consciousness into my apartment. What's up, everybody, and welcome to episode 20 of Brian's Book Bastion. It seems like just 10 episodes ago, we were on episode 10. So upon finishing Catch-22 recently, I've realized that I've really started to like a particular literary device. Non-linear timelines.
Welcome to episode 50. I've officially taken over the show now.
I've read 3 books fairly recently that kind of employ this, and it was something that I didn't realize that I enjoyed until I got to Catch-22, but for some reason, having the timeline be mixed up, to me, really organizes the book in a really satisfying way. I went on Goodreads and found a list, and these were actually on there. I think at least 2 of the 3 were on the Goodreads list of non-linear timeline novels. But I was actually curious if any of you out there also like non-linear timeline novels, and if you have any recommendations for me. And if you're looking for some, then boys, it's the episode for you. And it will be constructed with the least radical non-linear timeline all the way over to the most radical non-linear timeline. Woo! Welcome to episode 51. I've taken the show back. And it will feature 3 books that have been read in the last 2 years or so. The least radical being The Handmaid's Tale. I actually included it because I was looking on the list on Goodreads to see if I had read more than I was anticipating, but this one made the list, and I think it's the least radical because it only employs pretty much a flashback as far as diverging from what the timeline is supposed to be. You start in this dystopian society, but you get a little bit of a glimpse of what was going on before everything had started to get a little crazy. And so I don't think that it was an insane example, but all the same, the flashback technically counts for a nonlinear timeline. The happy middle being Catch-22, which I talked about last week, which happened to be a popular episode because of a certain someone. And there will be minor spoilers for not only this one, but the next book that I talk about as well. So be careful if you are spoiler sensitive. But Catch-22, as I mentioned last week, does employ a nonlinear timeline, and it's more than just a flashback. It's certain events that are played off as being unimportant at the time, or it can be considered important because of the circumstances that the characters are in, but it's not really dwelled upon too much. Those passages are really short, and it seems like it's something that's not going to matter in the long run. As you go on through the book, those events are revisited multiple times in certain cases, and you start to realize that certain characters are making bigger impacts than you were first led on to believe, and some characters actually die earlier on, and you don't get a full picture of what actually happened in those situations until way later in the book. And there are multiple instances where characters are dying throughout the whole thing, but as you get to the end, you realize that some of those deaths meant more to certain characters than others. I think this would be a perfect start for anyone that I personally think that this would be a perfect start for anybody that's trying to get into nonlinear timelines. Welcome to episode 324. Today we're reviewing Air. Finally, last on the list, and probably the craziest example of the nonlinear timeline, Slaughterhouse-Five. Straight from chapter 2, listen. Billy Pilgrim has come unstuck in time. How more nonlinear can you get?
That was bad.
What?
I didn't like that.
And we're off to the races. Boom, no more timeline. Slaughtered that timeline.
That was the worst one.
Billy begins to visit all of these random points in his life in no particular order. Hey, welcome to episode 128. Today we're reviewing Egyptian cotton tank tops. And sees all of these huge life events. He even visits his own death multiple times. So it goes. And that's not even the end of the book. I think in Slaughterhouse-Five and in Catch-22, both of those narratives seem to hit harder when you know what's going to happen and then get a more revealing plot point after that fact. because you're already prepared for it. You think when Billy Pilgrim's death is coming up, it's just like, oh, well, I already know he dies. And then some other detail comes forward and it starts to kind of blow your mind even more. That's what's made me appreciate the nonlinear timeline, is that familiarity and that ability to surprise even through the familiarity. Hey guys, the channel really hasn't been doing so hot recently, so I've made the decision. We're going through a rebranding. I definitely recommend those 3 titles right there, and I'm really curious to see if any of you have any favorite nonlinear narrative novels. Whoa. If you have a favorite, leave it in the comments below. I'm going on vacation this weekend, and we all know how I am with vacation reads, but we'll be back next week with a new episode. I'll see what gets read before then, if I don't get unstuck in time by then.